Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Unholy Mole Show. Today we're going to talk about I seen this thing. It's called the Flavian conspiracy. Oh, God damn it! Am I a newbie or what? Jesus Christ! You and Jesus Christ! My first time. Hi, Brain. How you doing, buddy? Hi, Josiah. Hi, Matt. But anyway, I heard I found this video and it's called the Flavian conspiracy. Have you you read a little bit about it, Duke? What do you think? Just your first impression of that, the Flavian conspiracy.
My first impression of it is just it sounds a lot just like I was saying, like conspiracy theory-ish. You know what I mean?
It's very conspiracy theory-ish.
Like, there's a part of me, like, I'd have to look way deeper into it to see if I could figure out, like, what are the scholarly consensus on this? Because it seems like one guy saying something.
Right, because I've never heard about it before, so I mean, it can't be that well known. I just thought it was really interesting, you know. I mean, but I mean, it is really far fetched. But on the other hand, it does. I mean, there are parts of it that do make sense. Like, I can see the Romans doing that as a way of controlling, you know, because they were having problems with the Jews. So, like, cross between like Richard Carrier's views on things, you know, like Jesus was, you know, mythicist and like, and he's more symbolic than he is a real person. You know what I mean, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, but that'd be bizarre. If I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, I really wouldn't. I mean, there's no proof of it, but I mean, it's a conspiracy theory that's possible. Not probable, not guaranteed, but it is possible. I'll give you that much.
It's possible. The whole thing, like, I don't know enough about mythicism to make an informed opinion on it. So I've remained.
I mean, I know a little bit, but not enough to, like you said. And that's the thing too. That's another thing I wanted to mention about atheists. We at least do not try to talk about something we don't know nothing about. Christians, on the other hand, will fucking just pull shit out of their ass. We tend to be a little bit more fact focused. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, also they expect us to be friggin' masters of all forms of knowledge. Like, we're supposed to be able to answer every single question that they pop up. Like, I don't know is never a good option for them.
And they gish gallop, dude. They gish gallop. They don't, you know, they don't want, they say they want evidence or whatever, dude. They don't want evidence. They just want a way to, you know, try to make us wrong in some way or another. Oh, this is totally off subject, but I'm totally stoked. I got Logic. I'm going to be interviewing Logic after the first of the year. So pretty fucking stoked about that. And I got Iseth coming up too, and a couple other people. So it's going to be a good time.
Cool.
So, but other than that, I figured I just wanted to run that by you. But I figured we always have a good time looking at some answers in Genesis articles.
That's good too.
Yep, it's always a fun time looking at some answers in Genesis articles. So, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was good, man. We had a good time. We mostly just hung out and watched movies and ate sweets and played video games, but it was fun.
Yeah, I know I haven't been around lately, but a buddy of mine, you know, I'm really passionate about recovery, and a buddy of mine, I've been listen to this. He tried getting into detox, right? And they says to him, well, unless you're a danger to yourself or others, we can't allow you. I'm like, what? Like, he went there one time, they told me he's too drunk. He went there the second time, they told me he's too sober. So I'm like, you know what, dude? I said, fucking, you're more welcome to come and stay with me. Lock yourself in the house. Take your meds. You smoke a little weed, whatever you gotta do, but do not drink. So I kidnapped him pretty much so I can keep an eye on him for the first few days, make sure he's, I can take his vitals and stuff, make sure he's safe.
Yeah.
And but other than that, so that's why I haven't been around a whole lot lately. I've just been a little busy.
Oh, dude, you were busy helping a buddy, and that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I know. So what's new with you? How's your daughter?
She's good. She's good. She had a good time here. She got to hang out. I bought her a kitty.
That's, that's
Um,
awesome.
she she's she's good. She's a sweet kid, and I love her.
That's
And
good. That's good.
I'm glad I get to
You
get her
know,
this Christmas.
I think it's shitty how society deems that the child is better off with their mother when that is not always the case. I mean, there's men out there that are very great dads and they get the shit on and fucked around because they're a man, and that is bullshit. That's sexism, if you
I
ask me.
agree. I
You
agree. In
know,
my situation, we have joint custody, and I came to Florida to create a safe environment for my son, who has been with me since he was littlest from my first marriage. So the only reason I don't have her like every other week is because I've been down here. Um, Eventually, I'd like to get back up there to Charlotte and be around her all the time.
right? Of course,
But my son was falling apart whenever the divorce came down the line. He was already just in dire straits, and I knew this here was a safe place for him, and he could get like the attention he needed, and it worked because he went from failing at everything in school and from me getting phone calls literally 4 times a week about his behavior to passing everything. And I am in 3 years, I haven't had a single call from school, not one. They haven't called me a single time to
you
say your
mean when
son's
when
acting like a
when
dink.
when they were in your care? You mean?
Oh no! When I was still up in Charlotte with my ex,
Oh,
he was just falling apart.
when you were around, you mean you had never had no problems, and now there's just her. He's getting into trouble. Is what you're saying, right?
The reverse. So whenever she and I were still together, he was just miserable and having a really hard time. Once she and I split and I brought him to Florida, he just is a whole nother kid now. He's
Oh
just
yeah,
doing great.
that's
And that was an
wonderful.
issue like when she and I were still together up there, like she was going through some classes for her degree, and it was a really hard class. So she was gone all the time for like 6 weeks. She was gone all the time. And during that time period, we just all got along really well. And then whenever she would come home, it would just be a war zone again. It was just ridiculous. And some of that's my fault, some of it's her fault. We were just a toxic couple,
Right,
And then to begin with, and then I became an atheist and came out of the closet, and that was the end of it.
right. That's the funny thing too. Like a lot of people stay in relationships out of the fear of being alone, and they're in a toxic. I've done it myself. We're all guilty of it. We're in toxic relationships, and we don't let it go. But I got dumped a couple months ago, and at
Yeah,
first it was I hurt. So, it hurt. It hurts to get dumped, but it was totally amicable. I mean, we're still good friends. We talk to each other daily. She's still my best friend, and now that some time has passed, I think it was probably for the best. I think it was actually better than us staying together. We just weren't cut out to be together. An atheist and a hardcore Christian, I should have known. I mean, I should have known. I
that was
really,
exactly
really
how it
should.
was. That's exactly how it was for me and my ex. And um, it was weird because I was like desperately in love with my ex. I had been desperately in love with her for like 15 years. So when we split up, it was like cataclysmic. And for the first 2 years, Anytime I got my daughter, my sister would just go up and grab her for me, so I didn't have to deal with her. And this time, nope, I ended up just deciding, you know what, I need to be the one to go do it. My sister's busy. I purposefully didn't bring up the date so that I would kind of be forced to go and do it. And I was really worried that I would see her and it would just be a flood and I would be, having to deal with that shit all over again. But then when I saw her, it was just, there was nothing there. Like I took one look at her and was like, I literally, the first thought in my mind when I saw her was, what did I ever love about you? So we
I
didn't end
sent
amicably at all.
right. I sent you a DM, Badger. If anybody else would like a link, let me know, and I'd be happy to send you one. I don't want to get too many people in here, get it out of hand, but if a couple more people want to come in, just let me know, and I'll send you a link. So, all right, let's look at some answers in Genesis. All right, what should we go? We got uh, so many different topics we could choose from. What sounds good? Okay, topics. We got age of the earth topics. We got the biblical topics. We got creation topics. We got evolution topics. God, science, worldview. So let's start with science. Let's see let's see what their views on science are. What do you say?
Oh, they're going to be cringy. I'm just going
Yeah, it is going to be. That's why I picked it. I figured let's pick you know, what is science? Are we anti-science? Not at all. Answers in Genesis, like other creationist groups, it's in parentheses, affirms and supports the teaching and use of scientific methodology, and we believe this supports the biblical account of origins. I do not have a clue how they can fucking fool themselves into believing that science matches up with the Bible. What they think of? Can you think of any verse in the Bible that's even remotely scientific?
Not one.
Not a single one. You know?
Not one. And it's funny because back when I was still a believer, I would have to suspend disbelief in order to be a
Yeah.
believer.
I said, I've pretty much been an atheist my whole life, so I don't understand people that believed and then switched over. I mean, the cognitive dissonance must have drove you crazy, dude. I mean, did you just compartmentalize it and put it out of your head? Is that what you had to do?
For the most part, I just never got into science. I just avoided it.
Oh, I get it. So if you avoid it, it's pretty much like a little kid. Pretty much, if you cover your eyes, it doesn't exist, kind of thing.
More or less, yep. I spent a lot of
Yeah.
time just ignoring the facts, right? So, and the same stupid arguments. It seemed like they're so reasonable to you in the moment, and then like once you actually learn something about, for instance, evolution, you look back at the things you used to think and think that was really stupid. How did I think that?
Hey Matt, I'm looking at the side chat. I'm really sorry, Matt, but it's you, you did the right thing. That was the very adult thing for you to do. I mean, a lot of guys, would have made an ass of themselves, and I'm very proud of you, Matt. That's all I have to say. I'm very proud of you, buddy, for
About
making.
what?
Well, he was his best friend. He had developed romantic feelings for her, so he told her, they couldn't be friends anymore because it ruined their friendship. And I think it's a very hard thing to do and a very adult thing to do. And I'm proud of him. I just want you to know that, Mr. Barkley. Hi, Lizzie. How are you, my friend? Glad to see you here. Okay, now so the next one is, so what is science? In its original form, science simply meant knowledge. When someone says today that they work in the field of science, a different picture often comes to mind. Many people do not realize that science was actually developed in Christian Europe by men who assumed that God created an orderly universe. That is a fucking a total lie. We do know that the early Christians were scientists. I mean, back then everybody was a Christian, so
Yeah,
of
that's the
course
thing.
Christians invented science.
Yeah,
Or
but you could also say like Galileo believed in God and came up with something and got locked in a tower for it. You know what I mean? Got
right,
tortured and
exactly.
imprisoned for what he believed because it
And
was.
then yeah, and then there's what Copernicus was another one of them. Kepler. How many? I mean, there's the list goes on and on and on of people that got fucking um. Okay, the two kinds of science. It is helpful to distinguish between operational science and origin science. Compare how each one seeks to discover truth. Operational sciences use observable, repeatable experiments to try to discover truth. Origin science relies on relics from the past and historical records to try to discover the truth. I don't have really too many arguments with that one, but they'll twist it any way they can. The Bible is our starting point of science. Is it because God exists that science is possible? Think about it. The reason the universe is orderly and logical is because the logical God has imposed order on it. His creation. God created our minds that we are able to discover the laws of science that He created. If we're supposed to be the image of God, and we first of all, we weren't supposed to have knowledge in the first place. We wouldn't have had knowledge if Eve wouldn't have ate the apple. So
Right.
God, in the, I mean, if you look at that overall, God never intended us to have knowledge. I mean, that just makes no sense at all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Um,
And
okay,
also, if the universe is supposed to reflect a God that is all good, why doesn't the universe seem to reflect a God that is all good? Right. I mean, so
right.
it comes back to the question: like when Eve ate the forbidden fruit, did she curse the whole fucking universe, or just the planet, or what? You know what I mean? Like, because if she didn't curse the entire, that would be silly, wouldn't it? Like one
Yeah,
freaking one semi-rational fucking ape eats a fucking fruit they're not supposed to, and the whole universe gets fucked as a result. That doesn't make sense. So,
It'd have to be a
naturally.
pretty not all good god to put a fruit that does that there in the first place.
Oh, hey, Badger, my
Hello.
fellow underground apostate.
I
fellow
poked my
Narnian,
nose in, by the way.
But how are you today, Badger?
Oh.
How's the weather across the pond?
Oh, it was a massive storm this morning.
What do you mean a massive storm? What do you mean by massive? I think our
Well,
definitions be different.
well, I don't mean a massive storm as in a hurricane came and blew all the houses away.
No, I mean like
But,
did you have snow or something or rain?
There
What do
was
you
there
mean?
was rain, there was wind, it was ringing all the bells, it was blowing the fences
Oh
over. It
shit!
was great fun.
Yeah, you guys since you're on the island and because of the ocean current and the drafts and stuff, that's what keeps that's what keeps England more temperate compared to like Illinois or not Illinois, but like
Yeah,
latitudes of the same,
yeah,
right?
it's the whole
Is
jet
that
stream
correct?
business.
You know what we got the other day? 2 days ago, we got 13 inches of fucking snow one night, dude. Yesterday,
Mm.
I spent 4 hours shoveling snow. I fucking feel like I'm 110 years old today.
I wouldn't mind
I'm
some of that,
fucking
but yeah.
sore as shit. Hey, man, Gun, I'm glad to see you back again, man. Like I said, I don't know if you were here, but if anybody wants, if you want a link, let me know, and you can hop on in. Okay, let's read an article. Okay, um, fee, you can question science. Response to talking science to Christians. Is the origin of life a scientific question? First usage of origins versus operational science. Is there really a war on science? Overwhelming evidence and all fields of science support evolution.
Yes,
Yeah,
there's an
I believe
overwhelming
that.
amount of evidence that supports evolution.
Yeah, let's read this
Apart from
article.
fields of science that are unrelated.
Yeah, let's read this article. Okay, the article name is "Refuting Evolution's Claims: Overwhelming Evidence in All Fields of Science Supports Evolution." Argument number 3. Explore the 12 arguments evolutionists should avoid. Series to prepare yourself with answers to common yet faulty assertions by evolution. They say we have the faulty assertions, but we're the
we.
ones who prove, which is odd. Okay.
Well,
The
it's also
irony,
interesting because if they want to ask us about the burden of proof, like we can provide that for them. We can say, "Oh, here's the evidence, like right here. Here
exactly.
it is."
We don't make extraordinary claims without evidence like they do.
No,
The
but like the
irony,
most we do is dismiss their claims without evidence.
right? The
Like I do
irony, of
that all the
course,
time.
is that for centuries prior to Darwin's publication of On the Origin of Species, the majority of scientists found the opposite to be true. The evidence supported creation. What changed? Well, what changed was fucking that was over 150 years ago, and their understanding of science was at the best in the infancy of science. I mean, like they had no. I mean, they didn't even know that bacteria and viruses caused disease. Then they thought it was fucking bad air, for Christ's sake. So I really wouldn't trust their fucking their idea of what science is.
At all.
You know?
And it's not only
Okay.
that, right? So Darwin comes up with a theory of evolution, and let's say that scientists of his day are bucking against his idea, right? Well,
Uh,
regardless of whether or not they bucked against the idea, over the last 150 years, we've vindicated the idea and refined it and turned it into a theory. You know, it's become like go ahead. Sorry.
oh, you're okay. And I think I'm sure you've all noticed as I have that Christians are not very good at distinguishing the difference between theory and a hypothesis. Am I the only you guys know what I mean, right?
That is
Like
100% correct.
Mm.
like they think a
It's,
theory and a hypothesis are the same thing, and they also think a theory is unproven. Actually, a
I think
hypothesis is unproven. A theory is something that proves that yes, this is the bet. This is what's going on.
I think part of the
Hypothesis is
problem there is that even in science articles in newspapers, online news sources, and things like that, the words are used interchangeably by people who are not actually working in the field of science.
yeah. There's a
So
colloquial.
they'll quote those articles and go, "Look, this theory says that." And no, it's not actually a theory. They've just said it in the news article.
Yeah, they've created a colloquial definition for theory that isn't relevant to the scientific method.
Memes in the chat said universal truth number one: people ruin everything. I have to agree with
Yep,
that. I
absolutely.
totally have to agree with that. Um. Okay, so it goes on to
The reason I
say,
live underground.
right, creationists could respond to this argument with their own overwhelming evidence. What overwhelming evidence? In support of creation, such as this impressive list. However, creationists must be aware, building their case on the basis of evidence alone. The common assertion, the evidence speaks for itself, is a logical fallacy of reification. A fossil dinosaur won't speak up and tell us its age. So unless God allows the rocks to cry out, Luke 19:40, which is, he answered, I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out. I think they're using that out of context there. That doesn't make any sense.
I see.
No one,
Yeah, I see what they're trying to do, but it doesn't work.
yeah,
So essentially, they're like that whole statement in the Bible was, like if there was no one to say, to praise God, the creation itself would raise up and praise God, right? It has nothing to do with whether or not we discover dinosaur bones. Like
right.
that's a stretch.
So no one can claim the evidence argued in one the case. It isn't about the amount of evidence each side can dig up in its favor, since both sides interpret the evidence according to their opposing worldviews. The debate centers on which side correctly interprets the evidence. That is a bunch of shit. They can't say that evidence isn't what makes you win or lose. Bullshit. Their evidence is a book and their interpretation of that book. Our evidence is actual fossils and scientific study and, um, you know, repeatable over and over and over and over and over again. So they know. I mean, they know their evidence is fucking bullshit. So that's why they say stuff like that. My idea.
Yeah, and on
Um,
top of that, like the point of science is like like the point of like science is to try to disprove said theory over and over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? It's a constant attack on the idea. You're attacking the idea to try to falsify it, and when you can't falsify it, it becomes accepted, right? And the minute you do that with the Bible, it falls apart on every level.
yeah, yeah, exactly. If you take out one block of, like, let's say Christianity was a building. If you take out one block, it's like Jenga.
Yeah,
The whole tower crumble. I mean, the argument isn't even close to strong enough to stand on its own. In my opinion, if an argument's a good argument, it should stand on its merit alone. You shouldn't have to defend it at all. I mean, if Christianity was the one truth, then there should be no question about it. If it's the one truth, there should be no denying it. You shouldn't be able to argue against it. You know what I mean? You get what I'm
I think
saying?
I get what you're saying. I think Sam Harris said it best when he said, imagine a book written by an all-powerful, omniscient being, and then look at the Bible. Like a book by a being that is all-powerful and knows everything should be the most profound thing ever written, even if it's just
Exactly.
inspired. Even if it's just
Exactly.
inspired. Like if God really wanted to impart knowledge on us, he would have imparted knowledge on us, but he didn't. What he did was he laid out a
Yeah,
bunch of dumb fuck rules that don't make any sense out of context.
they're
You know?
vague as fuck too. They're so vague that they can be interpreted in any way you want to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so and it's okay. Well, what do you guys think of like miracles, for instance? Isn't it odd how miracles stopped happening once the age of reason came about and people started to be able to explain things with scientific,
Well, the
answers?
miracles still happen, just to people who already believe that they happen.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah.
That's a weird point because I kind of got into that with Andrew Stratalites about that because
Yeah.
somebody asked
Straight
Nate.
late.
Somebody asked, name something that was once considered a miracle and is now explained by science, and he said, that's never happened." And I brought up the germ theory of disease, which was once upon a time considered to be basically just plagues by God, used by God to punish people. Mm-hmm. And he made the point, and it's not a bad point. He made the point that doesn't discredit the fact that God could have still done it. Which my point to that is, well, yes, it doesn't discredit the fact that God could have still done it, but it does make him unnecessary. Right? Mm-hmm. Like before we knew about the germ theory of disease, there had to be something that caused this phenomenon, and that thing was universally accepted as some form of God character or magical spell or something like that. Once we knew about the germ theory of disease, all of a sudden it was no longer even necessary for there to be a God. So that's kind of where I go with that. But it is a weird thing. I remember I was having a conversation with a lady one time, and she pointed out to me that her sister, who was pregnant, had melanoma, and they had these scans of her body that just lit up with cancer. And they anointed her with oil and prayed over her. And 2 weeks later, she went back and it was gone. They scanned her again, and every trace of it was gone. And she's good. She's happy. She's living. It's like it never happened. And she said that's one of the founding reasons. That's one of the main reasons why she believed in God. And my retort to that was, I can't deny that. I can't deny that happened to you. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened. I mean, my assumption wouldn't be God, and here's why. My brother-in-law got diagnosed with melanoma. We did more or less the same thing, and he was dead in like 3 months. So, you know, like,
well, God moves in mysterious ways, don't you know?
Yeah.
As in,
So
statistically
it's so
random
mysterious,
events
you have no idea how he
are
does
evidence
it.
of God.
what are you saying, Mo?
Oh, I said it's so mysterious that no one knows how he does it. That's how mysterious it is.
Yes, it's so mysterious that it seems absolutely random.
Yeah, it's so mysterious that if you were to plot it statistically, it would be essentially random.
Yeah, and so I like Eddie Izzard had that great line where he said, "God's plan is tantamount to someone having no plan at all."
Yeah, if he has a plan, it's a fucking horrible plan. For someone that's supposed to be omniscient, boy, that motherfucker sure is a horrible planner, isn't he?
Yeah, it's one of my a buddy of mine once said that to me. He said, "Well, you know, God has a plan for everybody," and my retort to that was, "Yeah, and His plan for some people is that they eat shit and die." You know,
Yeah,
right.
So what about those people? You know what I mean? Like that's the problem, is that there's no consistency there, right? There's no consistency with the all omnibenevolent side of things, and that's where they really get fucked, right? Is that they try to couple everything together, what Narami calls the quad omni thing, you know, and it's like he can't be all of those things given the evidence of what we see in reality. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. Okay, so it goes on to say a worldview is how a person views the world based on his presuppositions, starting beliefs, which in turn affect the way he behaves. It should be affects the way he behaves, but I'll leave my grammar Nazi alone for now. Two of the major worldviews today are the biblical worldview and secular humanism. Dictionary.com defines humanism as any system or mode of thought or action in which human interests, values, and dignity predominate. This sounds noble, but secular humanism excludes God and His Word. Instead, secular humanists rely on man's reasoning alone, with beliefs such as naturalism, evolution, relative truth, and cultural or individual morality. Bonnie Bacham contrasts secular human and the biblical worldview through 5 different elements. Okay, secular humanism, view of God, atheism, Christian theism. View of man, evolution, Christians, special creation. View of truth, relative, Christians, absolute. Now, how can ours be relative and theirs be absolute? Do they have proof of their God?
Well, here's another thing I wanted to say. You're talking about how secular humanists, they're saying one of the problems of secular humanism is that we exclude the Word of God. But because we're humanist, we exclude the Word of God. That's the reason we exclude the Word of God.
There's no evidence that there are words of God.
Well, not only that, but I mean, like, even if we don't accept it as the Word of God, but like the Word of God is the least humanist thing ever. Like, if you read the Bible, there's nothing about that book that is based on human well-being at all. It is literally like anti-humanist. That's why that's one of the reasons why it's not included.
These creatures I made aren't quite doing what I want, even though I'm omnipotent, so knew this would happen. I think I'll just wipe them all out, start again.
But with the same ones. some of the same ones. I'm going to wipe out most of them, and I'm going to leave these other ones and see how that works out.
Exactly the same thing again. But I already knew that, so I don't know exactly why I thought this was a good idea in the first place.
The next one of the 5 is view of knowledge for atheists or secular humanism is scientific materialism and naturalism. And Christians is scientific general and special revelation. What is their special revelation? The Bible?
Well, they see that as being right. So that's something I've gotten into as well with a couple of people. So it's the idea that reading the Bible and contemplating on it and meditating and praying through those things, God reveals to them internally that what is true. And like my question for that is always, knowing what we know about the brain now, you have a constant internal dialogue going on at all times.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate between God talking to you and you talking to yourself?
Exactly. And and remember, we're talking about inner dialogue at all time. That kind of takes out, like, do we really have free will? I mean, because we're we're thinking about these things before we carry it out. So that means it was planned. I mean, is it really free will? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think so. I personally think that what we think of as free will is illusory. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I think it's, I don't think it's entirely gone. Like, I don't think we're automatons, but.
No. But I think I think that they put too much stock into free will, is what I'm saying.
Well, the way they see it is that our cognitive self is piloting the boat. It's piloting the ship. And that seems to not be the case. It seems as though, for the most part, I think that Jonathan Haidt put it really well when he referred to it as the elephant and the rider. Your subconscious self is the elephant, your conscious self is the rider. And your conscious self does have some level of veto power over what's going on, which is kind of why, sometimes you want to slap somebody in the face and you don't. You know what I mean? Because some part of you stepped in and went, no, we can't do that. That's not good. But I would say that the evidence that I've seen, at least, and everything I've read about it, kind of points towards the idea that you've got your subconscious self making all the decisions, and your conscious self is observing them.
And that brings up this, like, Christians are always saying that, oh wait, hold on a second, I lost what I was going to say. It'll come back to me. Don't worry, it'll come back. But I don't know.
We were talking about free will. And
yeah.
Christians always say.
Well, what? A lot of Christians always say that evil in the world is because of free will.
Yeah,
that's something they have to come out with to me.
Yeah, which makes no sense. Okay, so all right, let's say God created the earth in 6 days, right? And then Adam and Eve fucked up, and they got kicked out of. Now, if He created us in His image, and we were supposed to be perfect, how could the first humans on Earth have fucked up? If they're perfect and they were made in God's image, how did they fuck up in the first place?
Did you see my thread with SJ about that?
No, I didn't get a chance to see that. What did she have to say about that?
Nothing. She dodged the question for like 10 tweets and then disappeared.
Surprise.
That was my exact question. Like, all right, they were perfect, and if they were perfect, then it seems impossible for them to make a wrong decision, right? Because there's no degree of perfection. So if you're perfect, you're not going to make the wrong decision. You're going to make the right decision every single time, which we've shown to be untrue by the fact that God doesn't seem to be able to make any decent decisions about anything ever.
Well, one counter I've heard to that is that they weren't perfect in every regard. They were perfect in terms of perfect human specimens. So, if you looked at Adam and Eve, you would see them as perfect physical representations of humanity.
Right.
which seems like a bit of a cop-out to me.
It's a cop-out.
And then it goes on to say, secular humanists may paint themselves as neutral and challenge the creationists to leave the Bible out of discussion of the evidence. Of course, they don't want the Bible left out, but there is no neutral ground. Secular humanism is a worldview based on man's opinion, whereas the Bible worldview is based on the infallible Word of God. So if an evolutionist claims religion is clouding the creationist view, the creationists must show how secular humanism blinds the evolution to the truth of Ephesians 4:18, which is, they are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to their hardness of their heart. Yeah, so once again, they're just trying to blame it on us, And first of all, the secular humanist has no basis to argue his case because reasoning would be meaningless and futile in a naturalistic world without abstract laws like the laws of logic. Second, absolute moral standards against wrongs like stealing or murder don't apply in a world of the survival of the fittest. Third, the practice of science presupposes that the universe is orderly and predictable, following the laws of nature, which cannot be explained in a random chance universe made up only of material. Okay, my first argument against that is, how are they to say that our laws of logic don't apply because we don't believe in God? That's ridiculous. And secondly, absolute moral standards. There are no absolute moral standards. That goes back to that.
I would say, so that would be something I came back to before. I've kind of been tinged on it by some people who don't agree with me, and maybe I'm wrong about it. But, the whole thing, like, you don't steal, don't kill, don't do these things, right? Well, they don't make sense in the survival of the fittest unless they're necessary for the survival of a species. So if those things are necessary for an animal to be social and to have a social group for its survival, then it makes perfect sense.
I agree. Oh, okay. Where was that?
So if you have more resources than you need to, if you have more resources than you need to survive, then what's to stop you doing something not survival based with them? That's not in contradiction with survival of the fittest.
That's true too.
My first problem with this whole entire thing is they started off by saying that all theirs is based on the infallible word of God. Like, for starters, how do you know it's the word of God that's coming out? And for two,
Right.
even if, let's just say that the Bible is the infallible word of God, let's just say that the entire Bible, God himself came down and wrote it down and gave it to man and said, here you go, this is how you're supposed to live your life. Why is there clear contradictions with how we know the world works today?
Okay.
Well, that's an interesting thing because they'll say, well, he wrote, like the laws, for instance, he'll say he wrote those because it was relevant to the time. You know what I mean? Like he wrote the laws the way he did about slavery and such as that because it was relevant to the time period they were living in, and it was something that was a social norm in the time period they were living in, which always raises the question for me: is God omnipotent or is he not omnipotent?
And the thing is let's just say that he did write this for the time frame of that period. Okay, so then why do we have to follow it now? Because
correct.
Let's just say that God did. Let's just say God came down, handed this book to them, and said, "This is how you're supposed to live your life." Or he gave them these rules and say, "This is how I want you to live your life." And the point is that all the stuff that was at one point in time relevant, like for instance slavery and all that stuff, and tell them, "Hey, look, this is how I want you to treat them," then that would only be relevant for the time frame and not for today's time frame. In which case, this Bible is not how we should be living our life today.
Right, and on top of that, that goes back to the. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, the funny thing is how they when it's convenient for them, they throw the Old Testament away, but when it's convenient for them, they say the Old Testament's still an authority. So which is it?
That's my pinned tweet.
God went from being angry, vengeful, jealous God to a loving, all-forgiving. But so if Jesus himself said, "I am not here to change the law," not one, what is it?
Jot or tittle.
Tittle. So which is it? Did he change the law or didn't he change the law? I mean, they pick and choose. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's my pinned tweets pretty much says that. It says when it suits them, it's metaphorical. When it suits them, it's literal. When it suits them, it's no longer relevant. When it suits them, it's mandatory. It's perfectly malleable to their immediate needs and yet immutable.
Yeah, I got in an argument with a Christian the other day, and I was telling them, early Christianity, there was no difference between early Christianity. I mean, early Christians were Jews. They lived like Jews. They looked like Jews. They practiced the same things Jews did. And Jews or modern day Christians don't want to admit that. They don't connect that. They say, "Oh, Jesus has nothing to do with Judaism." Well, that's funny. Jesus was a fucking Jew. So
hey, stop thinking you're fucking Jew.
Yeah, Neil's descended from heavens again.
Hey, Neil. How are you, my favorite teddy bear biker?
The thing is that, so the modern day Jewish way of going about things is the same as it was back then, but that form of Judaism is actually based off of old. It used to be polytheistic, which is why there is this whole entire section of the Bible where, whenever God's creating things and he says, "Let us create them in our image," because back then it was a pantheistic religion.
Oh, you gotta have a good pantheon, haven't you?
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, man. Like I could get behind the whole pagan thing if it weren't for the fact that I am so made that I cannot believe.
Well, the thing is there are actually atheistic pagans. They in other words, they believe they don't how can I word this? So there are, like, for instance, Ocean showed me or told me this one passage where this guy says that he has never once sacrificed anything to Odin. He has never once done anything for Odin, and yet he lived a long life. And that was his way of saying pretty much, I don't believe, but nothing has happened to me. So so it's a way for, that it is an atheistic version of paganism, but where you don't exactly worship, but you are doing this in spite of, like, other people, in other words.
Yeah, Ocean hit me pretty hard with the polytheism thing, because I totally misunderstood his position until he laid it out for me, and it was different than I was expecting.
It's entirely possible.
That's right. Are you talking? Ocean's is a polytheist, right?
He's a pagan. Yeah. He does not stick to one specific pantheon. He does believe in. I do know that he believes in the
Norse,
but he also believes in, he also falls under the gods of the Greek mythology and everything else too. So he doesn't stick to one.
It's entirely possible to not believe in any gods, not believe that any exist, but still enjoy the fun outfits and rituals and social gatherings and just go along for fun.
Go ahead. Sorry, Patrick.
No, that's pretty much all of it. It's entirely possible to just enjoy the social aspect and the fun rituals and the funny hats and go along and have fun without actually believing any of the spiritual side of it.
Yeah, and you could also sit there and say, do this stuff in just in spite of the Christians, because fuck it, they're already gonna imagine that y'all are all Satan worshippers, so might as well be paganistic Satan worshippers.
Might as well be consistent.
Exactly.
It's interesting because like if it means I can have an orgy and pour wine between a lady's breasts, I'm totally down.
That's one of the reasons that I hold up paganism and Wicca as my example of a good religion, because partly because it's got the whole if it doesn't harm anyone, do whatever you like, and also partly because the more silly and fundamental Christians tend to imagine it to be some kind of awful devil worshipping, demon summoning circle thing.
Yeah, which is why anytime from now on, whenever somebody sits there and tells me, oh, well, God bless you, I'm like, well, Odin bless you as well.
Or hail Satan.
Yep, or hail Satan. I will do whichever one comes to my mind at the moment. If I sit there and go, oh, may Thor bless your day today, or may Zeus smile upon you.
I did try to convert a Christian once to be a follower of Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness.
Classic. I think I'd be more of a what's his name? The god of knowledge, secret knowledge, and
I don't know.
From Skyrim or from Elder Scrolls.
Hang on. The tentacle guy.
The tentacle guy. Yeah, he'd be my guy. That'd be my go-to.
Omegon?
I'm trying to think of his name and I can't right now.
Hang on, I'm just looking it up now.
Like I can think of Mullet Ball, Sheogorath.
Whenever
wait. I'm just looking it up now.
If anyone tries to do the end of the world type of things, sit there and just tell people, and may Cthulhu eat you quicker than everyone else.
How do you even pronounce that?
Hermaeus Mora.
There we go.
Hermaeus Mora. That would be my go-to. That'd be the guy I was like, yeah, that's my dude.
I go with Sheogorath, Prince of Madness, because cheese for everyone is something I have in mind.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if like a portal opened up and somebody said you could pass into the world of Elder Scrolls, I would do it.
Oh, for sure.
I'd be like, yeah, we're doing that.
Yeah, I would definitely do that too.
Oh, has anybody? Have any of you guys watched The Last Kingdom yet?
No.
Nope. No, it's about 9th century England and like Alfred the Great and them fighting the Danes and stuff. It's semi-historical. I mean, it's pretty historical, but they took a lot of artistic license. It's pretty good.
Is that the one where one of the guys was born a Norseman?
But he grew up. No, he was born Anglo-Saxon. But he was raised in a Dane household, and he became a Dane.
Yes, I did watch some of that.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Anyway. I don't know what other people think of it.
What I didn't hear what it was.
The Last Kingdom.
I do. I have seen a little bit of it. It's a TV series.
Netflix.
Yeah, on Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix, but it's a series. It's not like just a movie.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I've seen some of it. It's kind of it's. I actually looked into the articles about him, the gentleman they were referring to, and if I'm not mistaken, they actually say that that's one of the inspirations for the name Arthur.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember the main character, the main king guy.
Alfred.
Huh?
Alfred, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. He was actually the I think the inspiration for the name Arthur, and he could be one of the people that the legend of King Arthur are based upon.
That's interesting. I never knew that.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, I could be completely and utterly wrong.
Look it up.
Yeah, we got Google. You want me to look? I'll look it up.
Dude, then,
Well,
Go ahead. Fact check me.
That's weird, Russ. Actually, someone that's the difference between atheists and Christians. If we don't know something, we don't pretend like we know about it. We don't just blow smoke up people's asses.
Yeah, no, definitely,
But
definitely fact check.
we're the ones that live in an echo chamber. Although none of us agree on everything ever. I mean, we agree on, most things, but I would say that we do not live in an echo chamber. They're full of shit.
No, and like I said, I'm always up for people fact checking me because there are some things I remember clearly, and there are some things that I'm just kind of iffy on. And this is one of those hills that I do not care to die on. I'm not going to sit there and be like, I know for a fact this is how this is, and y'all just need to take it my word for it. No, I definitely fact check me because I would rather be shown wrong, so that way I know where I'm wrong, and rather than being wrong and just assuming I'm right.
So there's a book written about it by Andrew Staden called King Arthur and King Alfred. So there's definitely somebody is definitely drawing that conclusion that there was some
similarities between the two.
Similarities between the two, or perhaps one was that Alfred was the was one of the inspirations.
Yeah,
and it would make sense.
I think one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, that Alfred did that kind of helps draw the line was he saw his men as equals. He didn't see them as, something below him. If I'm not mistaken, again, I could be wrong. But I think that's one of the reasons why they draw the conclusion is because Alfred saw his men as, equal upon him and not just, as subjects to him.
Yeah.
Which would be a good conclusion, like draw a good conclusion for the Knights of the Round Table, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's why the table was round.
Yeah, because everyone was the way King Arthur saw it was that not a single man who sat at that table was ahead of anyone else. And so that could have been a great drawing inspiration for him, was because I think Alfred thought the same way. He thought that, not a single one of his men he would not die for, that they would not die for him as well, type of thing. Again, I could be wrong, but I think that's what I read.
Well, the thing I was going to say about the echo chamber idea is the thing with the atheist community is there's an agreement on one subject, and even that's open for discussion.
Yeah.
Anything else is just that there's a wide range of opinions on it, even if there tends to be a general consensus on some issues.
Okay, I was going to bring this up. You know how they say that human beings are born with an innate sense of God in them, and that's what gives us our conscience between right and wrong?
I've heard that said, yeah.
Then why is it that children need to be taught the difference between right and wrong if God is already in them and they should know automatically because God's in them? Right?
That's part of it, yeah. And it's also the fact that, children don't just learn, but children don't just learn from their parents, they learn from each other by social interaction, right? Yeah, so kids get together and they behave with one another, and they figure out, okay, well, that didn't work, and everybody's pissed at me. Okay, well, that made everybody happy with me. Well, you know what I mean? And their little brains are logging all these facts all the time.
Yeah,
and so...
go ahead. Finish what you said before I was going on. What were you saying?
But you could always bring in the fact that some people don't really do that very well. Some, you have to put extra work into people with different forms of mental illness, for lack of a better way to say it, to help them learn to socialize better.
Yeah, and which is why
learning to socialize.
Which is why whenever SJ had put forth that that children automatically know that telling the truth is the best thing to do, I'm like, no, it's not.
Do you have kids?
I remember as a kid, there were several times I lied.
Was she never a kid or what?
Right? There were several times as a kid that I thought that I better lie at this, because if I lie, then I'm not going to get in trouble, and and then I sit there and will be able to still do what I want to do. Whereas if I tell the truth, I'm going to get punished in some way, shape, or form. Of course, I didn't say in these words as a child, but you know. And
kids lie their full heads off, man. They lie about every damn thing.
Right.
Yeah, I sat there and I had when I was married to my ex-wife, her son, we had to turn the doorknobs around to lock him in at night because in the morning he would wake up, he would not wake us up and then go into the kitchen, grab all of the seasonings and all the spices out of the cabinet, take them to his room and dump them all in a pile and just completely destroy destroy everything. Waste money and all these things. And he is because he did have some mental issues, but this is what he would do. So we had to turn his doorknob around to lock him in at night, so that way he didn't, get up in the morning and just do whatever the hell he wanted to with the spices. Well, one of the times before we turned the doorknobs around, we opened up the door. I went to open up the door to wake him up to see if he wanted breakfast. He had an entire pile of the seasonings on the floor. I can guarantee you probably about a foot high, and try to play it off as if he didn't do it. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, this is not, I mean, children do not know automatically that telling the truth is the best route. They know.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to finish up by saying that that telling the truth comes with experience over time. That saying that my parents have found out that I've been lying this entire time, every single time I lied. So it might be better for me to tell the truth because now I'm getting even more trouble when they find out that I'm lying.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with my son probably a dozen times, where I have caught him in a lie. Where he's like, "No, I didn't do that," and I'm like, "I just watched you do it." You know what I mean? Like, I know you did it. Like, just fess up. Like, you're going to be like, all you're doing right now is digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, you're not going to be able to climb out in a second. I'm trying to like throw you a line here and say, if you'll just fess up to this, yeah. But interesting, like you were talking about, the kid would go and dump all of the stuff out with my son. We had to put the syrup out of his reach because he would drink the entire bottle of syrup.
I like
so you understand where I'm coming from.
I enjoyed your description of that. Just we had to turn his doorknobs around, otherwise he'd come and get the spices and just destroy everything.
That's exactly why we had to. I was like, because if we didn't, literally, we would be every day we'd have to go to Walmart to buy all the spices that he ruined and all the other stuff that he took out of the fridge and brought to his room. And he would just have it all over the walls, all over his carpet, and he would just be like, it's like, yeah.
Well, I say it's the spice of life.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, and the kid, he was a sweet boy. He would sit there and want to play with you. He'd want to do all sorts of stuff with you, but he just would not wake you up if he was hungry and decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna go play with shit.
All right.
Like, oh, thank you.
Was he on the spectrum? Is he on the spectrum?
Yes, he was on the spectrum. Not only that, but he has a rare genetic disease that it's so rare that it doesn't even have an actual name. It's just known by what the professionals call it.
He's got the spice-itis.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. It's like P3 or something, or P3 or some shit like that. But he was definitely, but he also had a touch of autism, and you can tell whenever he would play with his cars and any social interaction where he knew he was in trouble, he would not look you in the eyes, and he would be like, He would look down. He'd look over. He would never make eye contact because he just couldn't. It was something that he couldn't do. And he also, I think, had a touch of I think he was touch aspie because he had these certain little things that he had to do that it couldn't be any other way.
Yeah, my son is an Aspie, and the reason I was asking is he would obsess over things too. Like when he learned how to fry eggs, like he would fry all the eggs in the house. Like he was old enough to be on his own, and I worked on the property. I lived at the property I worked at, so he would be at the house, and I would drop in 3 or 4 or 5 times a day and check on him to see, make sure everything was okay. And I'd come home, and there'd be like this pile of fried eggs on a plate, and I'd be like, "Buddy, hey, buddy, what you doing here, man? What's going on?"
That was a 16 pack. That was an 18 pack of eggs. That was to last us the entire month.
Do you make like a stack?
Yeah, in a stack, and he would be like, "I'd be like, what's going on, kid? What you doing here, man?" He'd be like, "Oh, those are for you," and I'd be like, "Well, it would have been nice if you'd have told me about them, buddy. Like, instead of how about don't fry every egg in the house? How about we stick it to 3? Just fry 3 eggs and eat those eggs, and then we'll see where we land.
Make like one more or 2 more."
When I was a little kid, I wanted to surprise my parents, and I tried to make biscuits. Right, they were out bowling. It was Friday night. I was like 11 or 12 years old, and instead of using baking powder, I used baking soda. They were the most horrible fucking biscuits you'd ever taste. They were so big. Oh my god! But I'll never forget that. And my grandma was, God bless her. I mean, pun intended. I obviously don't believe in God, but an expression. But she was like, she ate it, and she choked it down though, just to be a good grandma. And I thought that was pretty awesome of her.
Lovely, dear.
Yeah, it was great, honey. You did a good job. All right, I found a cool 12 arguments evolutionists should avoid.
I made biscuits once. I just want to add this quickly. I made biscuits once growing up.
Evolution is a fact.
Because I was trying to make a cake.
Yeah, but your version of biscuits aren't biscuits. I'm just going to throw that out there.
We don't want to get into this. Let's get to these 12 What's the things, Mr. Hall?
Oh, I was just going to say that. But 12 arguments that evolutionists should avoid. The first one is evolution is a fact. When our core beliefs are attacked, it is often easy for humans to retreat to statements such as, my belief is a fact and yours is wrong. That's exactly why we cannot trust mere human understanding to explain the unobservable past. Emotion and pride get in the way. Evolution is not a fact, no matter how many times evolution say it is. It's a framework built on assumptions about the past, assumptions that will never have direct, first-hand observational proof.
Like God. Like God.
2 quick question. Can everyone hear me?
Nope.
Yeah.
You can?
Yeah. I can hear you. I can hear you, Rice.
Then I will show how to quickly and concisely destroy that argument. Creationists, you cannot say your God is fact.
Well, that's the thing. Creationists are not trying to. They're not trying to say that that one is fact and the other is not. They're trying to say both creationism and evolution are a belief, not that one is more fact than the other. Yeah, because they already, to them, they know that creation is a fact, and what they're trying to say is that y'all believe that evolution is a fact, but
I know, and they try to demonize the term belief. They try to passivize it. But it's easy to just going back to what I was saying is, it's easy when I would core charge beliefs to fall back and say mine is a fact and yours isn't. when an argument can be completely destroyed by simply swapping out one word, maybe don't use that argument.
Right. And the funny thing is they say
creationism and evolution is we've never seen an animal just into existence.
Yeah, they say that when it says evolution states a framework built on assumptions about the past, assumptions that will never have direct first-hand observational proof. Bullshit. There is many transitional fossils. There is, I mean, they
those
just
were put
don't
there by
want
Satan.
to believe. Yeah. Satan dug a hole and put them in there. But I mean, how can they? Just dismiss the evidence out of hand? I mean, it's obvious. I mean, that's just so crazy that I mean, they're so hung up on the idea, that they can't see the forest from the trees, so to speak.
Well, and it's interesting because they're describing themselves perfectly in the way that they're describing us. They're straw-manning us.
It's projection is what it is. They're using the same argument that's actually true about them against us.
Yeah, well, one of the things that they are doing is it's because of their misunderstanding of what evolution is. I've had this conversation with several people.
I know where this one's going.
I
Because
have an idea too.
they understand evolution to be anything but a change in allele frequencies over time.
I think it's Pokemon.
There's some people because their understanding of speciation is the fact that they believe
it's going to happen in one single generation.
Yes, that what's going to happen is you're going to have one like say dinosaur giving birth to an alligator type of thing.
Yep.
And it's like, no, this is you are literally thinking of anything and of everything other than what evolution states. You are literally looking for telling us that evolutionists are believing in the crocodile whenever that is the worst case for evolution and the best case for special creation.
There's also the one that I heard, which I didn't think anyone seriously believed until I started having discussions about this on Twitter, which is that in order for one species would have to mate with another species in order to combine their traits. For example, a duck mating with a fish to create something, I don't know, like a platypus or something.
Oh, God.
Wait, hold on. Wait.
There are people who actually apparently there are people who actually think that's what evolution means.
Wait, repeat.
Guys, I don't
think is what?
They think that in order for, for instance, a platypus to come into existence, a duck has to mate with a fucking fish or a beaver.
Guys, I don't think
oh my God, that's amazing.
Makes perfect sense.
I'll link you to something about that later.
Okay.
Here's the second argument. Only the uneducated reject evolution. Besides the arrogance of such statements, this argument has no footing and should be cast off. Mainly those who make this claim usually define educated people in quotes as those who accept evolution. Anyone who disagrees fails the test no matter what their background. E.g., if we follow this ideology, Isaac Newton must have been uneducated. That's apples and oranges.
He wasn't around.
He wasn't evolution. He wasn't trying to prove evolution. That's apples and oranges.
Wait, who was that?
Isaac Newton.
Wait, what were they saying about Isaac Newton? Because you kind of echoed on me for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're comparing it. They say anyone who disagrees fails this test no matter what their background. E.g., if we follow this ideology, Isaac Newton must have been uneducated.
Because he didn't believe in evolution, but evolution wasn't around.
No, I mean, and the thing is, well, with Isaac Newton, is if that were the case, then Isaac Newton also believed in alchemy. I mean,
yeah, for Christ's sake,
should we take every single thing that about Isaac Newton to be, like the most amazing thing ever? I mean, like seriously, where is their line of reasoning coming from here? Like,
it's when it's convenient.
Oh,
and then they go on. Then they go on to say there are many lists of well-educated scholars who look to the Bible for an answer, and we can point out Darwin's own deficit of formal education. He earned a bachelor's degree in theology. Well, sounds to me like he does have an education. Huh?
Well, the thing is he was what Darwin was is he not only did he have that background in theology, but he also what he did was his first and true love was for science.
Beatles,
for instance,
wasn't it?
Well, no, it was for science in general. Like for instance, his he actually became a lawyer, I want to say, and he would take all these different places, these like college, and he would practice in areas that were close to rock formations and things like that, where he could actually study things that he was interested in studying, and so he would constantly knock off work just to go and look at the rock layers or look at things that he could go and study for himself before he actually even went on his trip on the Beagle to go and look at different wildlife elsewhere. So I mean, this whole entire thing about that he was all he had was a degree in theology. It's like but his whole entire thing was that he absolutely loved science. Like that was his first love. It was never anything other than that.
And moreover, why is it that creationists can't seem to understand that when it comes to education and evolution in particular, we're not saying, hey, if you're uneducated, you don't believe this, because you could be uneducated about a metric shit ton of things and still know a lot of things.
Yeah, of course you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's education in this one specific field.
I mean, if
you don't have any education in this field, you're not going to understand it.
Are they saying uneducated period or uneducated in a certain subject?
The thing is that what they assume that atheists or what they call evolutionists do is they believe that if you do not believe in evolution for some reason, you're automatically stupid. It's not the case.
You just think you're simply uneducated on one specific field of biology.
And like for instance, my aunt, she is a very devout Christian, but she also has her doctorate in the nursing field. She is brilliant. As she even has a paper that was in the or study that she had done that was published in one of the like local type of journals around here, and it was a study done by her about like it had something to do with like heart problems and being able to tackle it early on due to people coming back in for their follow-up appointments type of thing, and the correlation between the two things and stuff like that. And it was brilliant. But like I said, she's also a Christian, but she is smart as hell. There's Christians. That's just a little anecdotal one, but just
Cygart.
Cygart. He is a biologist who sits there and says, yes, evolution happens. Yes, all this stuff happens. Yes, I'm also a Christian who believes in God. There's just so many people out there who are Christians and are incredibly smart people. We never once, I think it was Arn Ra who said it, but he said this line where he goes, whenever I became an atheist, I did not automatically gain knowledge. He's like, I was no smarter than I was whenever I was a believer.
Exactly.
Which is true. We don't gain some sort of ability to be able to be smarter instantly the very second we say, I believe there is no God.
No, but it does remove a bunch. It does remove a bunch of roadblocks to knowledge.
Yes,
right?
It does remove this whole entire bias that the only way we can know a specific thing is because of God. Or and for instance, whenever I was a kid and I was a believer, I didn't feel like I should learn anything as far as science goes because what was the point? God did it.
Yeah,
I did. That's all I need to know was that God created everything. So what was the point in learning any of it?
Are you telling me you didn't feel like a massive intellectual power-up going on in, above your head as soon as you said, I don't believe there's a God?
Yeah, no, there was no automatic, oh my God, look at this. Because, hell, whenever I became an atheist, I fell into the trap that is zeitgeist. So that tells you alone that I was not exactly a intellectual mastermind whenever I became atheist.
Also, it's also always smart to point out that it's not nice to say, but I've known far too many atheists who are as dumb as a shovelhead.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are atheists who believe in flat Earth.
Yeah, I've known atheists who are just as dumb as a person who bought their dumb at a 2-for-1 sale. So there's just
atheism isn't synonymous with intelligent or even smart. It's just an answer to one question. I have met some of the most retarded atheists that make Ken Ham look like an intellectual powerhouse.
Wow.
I know
there does tend to be a statistical correlation. Not any kind of as usual.
Disbelief in God is a metric for intelligence.
There is a correlation between intelligence and belief in God, but as we all know, correlation does not equal causation. Mm-hmm. It's just a little quirk.
Because
as far as
if you think about it, what happens is like especially when it comes to the science, if you're a believer, you're going to say, well, how did everything come into being? Well, God did. Whereas if you were as an atheist, you now have to actually explore how this stuff happens. You can't just sit there and say, oh, well, a God did, because you no longer believe. And if you just sit there and say, I don't know, and just keep at you are just being willfully ignorant for the rest of your life. And that is actually perfectly acceptable in some areas. Like, for instance, if you do not care to learn how anything about the Big Bang, you don't have to. You can just sit there and say, I personally don't know, but I accept the general consensus on what it is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know is never a very good answer for a person that's entrenched in religion, right? But it's a perfectly legitimate answer for us, right? Yes. So I can say, like one of the things I've said to theist friends of mine before is they'll say, how did life begin on the planet? And I'll say, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure you don't either. Like, there's a hypothesis, but we don't know for sure exactly how it happened.
And I said this in the chat yesterday for RJ Downer, because he touched a little bit on abiogenesis. And I told him, we have a very good understanding of how things were during that time frame, primordial Earth. We have a great understanding of that. However, the mechanisms to create that life, the first organism, is a very it's still a muddled area, but we know more about it today than we did say about 20, 30, 40 years ago.
In the chat, Matt Barkley said, "I've kind of hit the point where I don't care if there's a God. Agnostic is probably close to that." In my opinion, you're being. I'm an agnostic atheist. I think everybody's technically an agnostic. None of us know for sure. We lean heavily toward the atheist side, but it's just like it's intellectually dishonest to say either way. Yes, there is no God, or yes, there is a God, because we cannot prove it either way, one way or another.
I personally follow under the camp that I believe there are no gods.
There is no God.
I also believe there is no God, but I mean,
but no,
I'm not ruling out the chance that there could be some kind of force.
Here we go.
Okay, but this is the thing is so when using definitions like this, we would have to fall more under philosophical definitions.
Yeah, you're right. It would be
you follow under what is known as the colloquial definition of atheist, which is I do not believe in a God, whereas I follow under the philosophical atheist, which is the hard atheist, where I says I believe there are no gods.
Correct.
Right.
To me,
so you believe you don't. It's a slight differentiating between the two, but it's still there because one position.
Right.
I believe that gods do not exist, but at the same time, you're kind of ruling that there's always the possibility of it. But whereas someone like me says, I believe that there are no gods, meaning that no matter what, I will never believe in a God.
Now, I am a strong atheist in the sense that I don't believe in the Abrahamic God or the Hindu gods or anything like that. I mean, so I am a strong atheist in that sense, okay? I'm just saying that we don't know exactly what's out there, but there's no evidence of God, so I'm gonna lean toward the fact that there is no God. So technically, yeah, I'm an atheist.
So technically, you philosophically, I guess you would be known as the weak atheist,
or an agnostic.
Philosophically, you are definitely agnostic.
I go with the title agnostic atheist for a few reasons. The first one is because it combines the philosophical and the colloquial definition in a way that makes it clear to both users of either what I mean. And partly because while I respect the field of philosophy as an academic discipline, I find that most of the people that I come across who discuss it and insist on the definitions tend to argue in a way that I find extremely obnoxious. So I do it in a way that says, here's what I mean, and here's how it fits with your definitions, and also says I won't discuss it in that way.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of got into this with Evans one time in the sense that, like, I agree that philosophically, from a philosophical standpoint, an agnostic atheist would just be an agnostic, whereas a hard atheist would be an atheist. And so there is a difference there. But I also say that I understand why people use the the colloquial definition, because it's easier to define what you mean by what you believe to somebody when you use that definition if they have no knowledge whatsoever of philosophy, right? So So I understand the purpose behind the term and why it's used colloquially, but my position is that there is no God.
Yeah, that's my position as well. I don't believe there is a God. I'm just saying that. I mean, but I'm just saying it's intellectually dishonest for me to say I absolutely for a fact know there is no God, because I can't absolutely know that fact at all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm a strong atheist. I don't think there's a God. I'm just saying that you never know, but I'm a strong atheist. I live my life as if there's no God. I claim there's no God. I don't believe in a God, but I still can't I'm a strong atheist. I'm more of an atheist than an agnostic. The agnostic is not a big part of it, is what I'm trying to say.
I've seen Badger's interaction with Steve McRae about this, and yeah, I saw that exchange on. And yes, I will agree. There are definitely people who are big with philosophy that tend to argue it so strongly, and Steve McRae is one of them. And love the guy to death. I do not agree that he should have to argue as strongly as he does about it.
Yeah, but I kind of like Steve, but I think on certain definitions he can be a bit of a dick.
Yeah,
I like Steve.
I like Steve a lot, but I mean he can rub people the wrong way. He's very staunch in his beliefs, and no one's going to change his mind. You know, he's just.
That's why in that interaction with him. Yeah, that's why in that interaction with him, I insisted on you still continuing to use my specific definition of it, and also went through the reasoning of why I use it and how I use it as a compound noun, as opposed to the epistemological modifiers that he was insisting on.
Right. Well, the only thing I don't understand about him is we're all on the same team, yet he doesn't like he won't, but he always wants to argue with I don't know. It's like he wants to. He wants to prove his philosophical knowledge, so he wants to. Oh, well, this is this, and this is this. You know, yeah. I think that's what pisses people off about him.
I don't want to talk for the guy because I could be wrong about this. So if I am Steve, I apologize. Yeah. But I would say some of that might come from the fact that he's had to deal with people telling him he's actually an atheist forever and ever and ever. You know what I mean? So he's just an aspect of that. He's doubling down on it and trying to show where philosophically he's correct. And I would say that philosophically he is correct.
If you are discussing it using those specific definitions, then yes, he absolutely is. If you use the philosophical clear definitions that are used in academic philosophy, he is completely correct in his usage of the words.
But we're not talking philosophically, we're talking about everyday life, you know?
I personally don't want to engage in an academic philosophical discussion because well, as I stated, one, I don't know a huge amount about academic philosophy, about all the names of various philosophers, different viewpoints and things like that. And also because I find that I get very frustrated with the level of obnoxiousness I often find in those discussions.
Yeah, because the deeper you go into philosophy, so philosophy is thinking about things. Whereas the deeper and deeper you go into it, it gets to the point to where you're thinking about things. And this gets to the point to where people just get bogged down with things. And everyday person like me, Badger, you, Duke, who aren't really all that big into philosophy, will get agitated and aggravated, which is why that's one of the biggest reasons I don't like metaphysics and things like that, because it's like really what you're doing, like especially because theists love to use metaphysics, and metaphysics really has no application in real life.
No, none at all.
And I actually got into Twitter discussion people where they sit there and the dude said that he's like, we may never know what happened before the Big Bang, which is why we need to use metaphysics to pretty much come up with the
metaphysics is hypothesizing with no evidence.
Yeah, exactly. and so I sat there and said, so pretty much what you're saying is that we need to use metaphysics to describe and define God, when by definition metaphysics has no application.
Right. Well, essentially what they're saying is it's super frustrating. Because it comes back to that whole I don't know, right? Like we don't know. To the point where some physicists have said that it's illogical as fuck to even think about what happened before the Big Bang or what happens outside of this universe. You know what I mean? It doesn't equate to anything that's tangible that you can there's nothing there.
You can't see it. Just like when Christians say God exists outside of time and space. okay, well, if he exists outside of time and space, that means he's not part of our universe. I mean, you're outside of time and space. You cannot control. You can't. There's no way you can have a hand in anything that happens in this world.
And that's why they use metaphysics.
Right. That's the point. That's the point in the conversation where I pretty much tell them they just conceded my point for me.
Right.
Yeah, if the conversation veers into sort of academic philosophy or metaphysics or anything like that, I fall under the agnostic definition, because I think it's impossible to have any kind of discussion about it with any degree of actual conclusion or information or certainty or anything along those lines, because our minds are incapable of conceiving of such things.
Correct. There's like one of the things that blew my mind. I don't know. Did you guys ever watch the Joe Rogan podcast where Neil deGrasse Tyson was on there?
No, I'd like to watch that though. I would like to watch that. That would be good.
He got into this concept, and I've been meaning to look it up, but he got into this concept called orders of infinity, which is basically a statement that some infinities are bigger than others.
Okay.
And my mind like oozed out of my ears and out of my nose and dripped onto my pants.
Yeah. How can one infinity be bigger than another, considering infinity means never mind. That's probably why you're breaking.
Dear. If you mean infinite as in a number I don't know, then yeah, one could be bigger than another. But if you mean infinite as in
it's strictly a mathematical principle.
It's a whole thing. It's a mess. Try to discuss it.
The thing is my whole entire thing is when people sit there and say, there's nothing that can be infinite besides God, except for the fact that through thermodynamics, we know with the first law that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So that means the energy that is here in our universe has been eternal by definition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could just be my misunderstanding of what comes with very much physics, but just by that alone, we have now just said that we know that through the laws of thermodynamics, energy is eternal. So now, and this is where people, sit there and be like, oh, well, that's because that's part of God or whatever. In which case, now you're just putting things on that you have no actual, way of knowing.
You're multiplying your assumptions beyond necessity at that point. Yeah. You're adding an assumption that's not necessary for the equation, which it weakens the equation. So
yes, and we use them by going off of Occam's razor, which is better, the assumption that or the argument that says, hey, this is how it is, or the other one that says this is how it is, plus we're going to add this additional thing that really we cannot test.
We cannot test. We cannot show to be real. This seems to be contradictory in its very nature, just by the way you describe it. And then they'll special plead back, and they'll move the goalposts, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, and just by using Occam's razor alone, we can now eliminate that entire process. And so this is one of the biggest reasons why I am a philosophical atheist, where I say there are no gods, because of this reasoning alone, because of the fact that we have energy being eternal. And the fact that if by a lot of people's understanding of their gods being eternal, then you would have to say that energy is part of their makeup, as far as them, and it just gets to the point where it's putting on assumptions onto something that doesn't need to be there, and we can then just eliminate that hypothesis altogether.
So to break it down, make sure I understand what you're saying, because I think we're on the same page, but sometimes I'm dumb as a post. Essentially, the argument would be that the universe is not eternal and had a beginning, but the energy that the universe is comprised of is eternal.
Yes.
Hey, I don't want to cut you off, Duke. My cousin's in town from out of state, so I am going to have to wrap the stream up. But you guys can stay in the hangout and chat if you'd like. But thank you guys all for coming. I will be streaming again pretty soon. Obviously, the Sunday morning stream, but I want to start doing an evening stream once a week too. So, in Badger, get a hold of me.
Yeah, we'll try and organize an underground apostates thing again at some point soon.
Yeah. I want to do the underground apostate thing again. So, thanks everybody for coming. I'm sorry it happened this way, but just from familia emergency, so to speak. So,
you're good, man.
Comes first all the time.
Thanks everybody.
Have fun, enjoy it.
I always love you guys coming. You guys are some of my best friends, and I will see you a little bit later today. Okay.
You got it, buddy.
Sounds
all
like
right,
plan,
later,
man.
guys.
See
Love
you
you,
later,
boys.
Mr. Mole.
Take it easy. Be good.